two more pillars to go. This one's on technology. If we can go through this one pretty quick, because we integrate technology tremendously in our classrooms already. Just some of the tools that I use to help my classroom. So the first thing I do, as I'm creating this presentation for you guys, I'm using WeVideo. Secondary teachers in the district have access to it. It's great because you can upload it right to YouTube. You can actually upload it to Google Classroom. I always tell my students, like, I'm building my YouTube empire. And again, at the end of the presentation, there's a link to my YouTube channel where I have all my videos stored. Okay, so I've created a YouTube channel to house my videos that I've created, which then allows me to bring it into the next piece, which is Edpuzzle. So Edpuzzles are what I give to the students to watch. The great thing about Edpuzzle is, if you've never used it, is that you can embed questions, where students answer it. It could be multiple choice, free response. You can allow students to voice record, but it's just a way to engage in it. I don't necessarily take those for a grade, even though, because what I do is the students watch it, watch me do an example, and then I give them an opportunity to do an example. Then I go over it in the video. Oftentimes, those are my jumping off points when we come into the classroom. Hey, let's talk about the example problem that was in the video from last night or from the weekend. In physics, right? So sometimes we don't have the technology or the right lab apparatuses, to apparati, whatever. I don't know what the plural is, but I use a website called Physics Aviary. If you're a physics teacher watching this, and you've never heard of this website, it's a great website because it simulates the lab environment, even though you may not have the lab equipment. So the picture in between the Edpuzzle and Nearpod is actually like accelerating electrons. I don't have that capability in the classroom, but through Physics Aviary, someone has created a simulation of that, and it's pretty cool. It's real, it's very close. But here's the cool thing, right? PhET is a great website through the University of Colorado. But if I give a worksheet from PhET or an activity from PhET, everybody's going to get the same answers because they get the same numbers, especially if you just give them like a cookie, the recipe style labs or activities. The great thing about Physics Aviary is that it's different every time you use it, okay? Or every time, like one student at one table does it, they'll have different numbers than the person sitting next to them. Even if I click refresh, it'll give me different numbers. So that's a great thing. That's the one thing I love about Physics Aviary. So the two things, it's a lab environment without actually being in a lab, which was great during COVID with all the Zoom calls and all that. But it also, it'll allow the students to collaborate more because, they're getting different numbers, okay? Which means they actually have to have those conversations with each other about, hey, how did you solve this, right? How did you do this? And they also have like graphing tools where kids could big thing in AP physics is the linearization of data. So taking like a curve and turning it into a straight line to analyze. They can do that on this website as well. I teach them how to do it through some activities, but then they can use the technology to do it. And I've used Paradeck and Nearpod for self-guided lessons. As I mentioned before, I've used it for the peer instruction model from Eric Mazur. So these are just some examples of the technology that's used in my classroom. The great thing is all this stuff is being mentioned, but at the end, you'll see a link to a Wakelet where each one of these pillars are there, where you can offer up other technology that you've used in your classrooms, or ways that you've created engagement, or if you just have straight questions. Okay. And I will tell you this, I am not the expert. And I can tell you this because we're doing a book study on blended learning at Richardson. And so I've got my Catlin Tucker book here that was given to me by the great instructional coaches that we have there. And I'm working my way through it. So even though I'm doing a presentation on it here for Grow 22, I'm not an expert on it. Okay. But again, there's a great integration of technology because that is what our students or have been calling throughout the presentation. That's what our learners are going to go out and use in the environment or in the working environment. Regardless if they, don't go to college and they just go into the workforce, there's technology everywhere that they see. So this is a very important pillar for us to kind of help model that for our students.